Thank you. Good evening. We do wait for that clock to tick over to 6 so that we can turn the cameras on and anybody wanting to stream will be here. So good evening, councillors, staff and gallery. And if I could begin with the statement of acknowledgement, we acknowledge the traditional owners of the land in which we are meeting and we pay our respects to their elders and to elders from other communities who may be here today. Item 3 is apologies and requests for leave of absence. We do have one leave of absence in Councillor Tim Quilty is off on some leave at the moment. Is there any other requests of leave for absence? No, you do that in December. Okay. Any others? No? You'll all be here for the December Christmas meeting. Declarations under Acts, regulations, codes or local laws.
Persons are reminded the Council's meeting procedure local law prohibits the use of audio, video or still image recording devices unless prior approval has been given by the chairperson or by Council.
Thank you. Item 5 is declarations by councillors of any conflict of interest. Councillor Mildren.
Madam Mayor, item 8.4. Madam Mayor, item 8.4.
Is there any others? Councillor Hall, none tonight. Yay. I know, it's fantastic. Terrific. Okay, thank you. Item 6 is confirmation of minutes of the previous meeting. The recommendation is there to receive those and confirm them. Can I have someone move? Thank you, Councillor Watson. Thank you, Councillor Bennett. Anybody wish to speak against those? No, motion is put. All those in favour? Thank you, motion is carried. Item 7 is delegates' report, of which there is none. Item 8.1 is the 2019 council meeting dates. The meeting dates are there. Councillors, the recommendation is there on page 11. Can I have someone move that, please? Thank you, Councillor Watson. Thank you, Councillor Lowe. Any commentary, Councillor Watson?
Madam Mayor, this is just our proposed dates, which will be in for next year, and it's halfway. So we're basically, as our council team, this marks our halfway that we're going in the next 2 years. So.
Councillors, any other comments? No. Councillors, anybody need to speak against this? No. Councillors, motion is put. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried. That takes us to item 8.2, use of council land for a circus with exotic animals. Councillors, it's an extensive report. The report is there. There is a recommendation on page 20, but there is no recommendation there. It is for a council law to put. Do I have a councillor to put a motion? Thank you, Councillor Lowe.
Madam Mayor, to open the discussion, I'd like to put forward a motion that council-owned land not be available for hire by circuses and carnivals that involve the performance and display of exotic animals.
Thanks, Councillor. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Bennett. Councillor Lowe, off for you for kick-off.
So this particular issue was never about banning circuses. It was never even about banning circuses using exotic animals. This is about how the community expects us to use council-owned land. There's probably a number of people who couldn't care either way, and that's completely fine. But there are a number of people who do care, and this has been raised on their behalf. During the short period that the circus was in town, through Facebook, LinkedIn, emails, phone, tag, comments, I was contacted by about 75 individuals during that period. And also there was an online petition that has got nearly 12,000 signatures. So that is why I raised this back in July in response to all the community feedback that I've got on this issue. The only issue that I've actually had more feedback on in my entire time on council is the Gold Cup public holiday, where I went out of my way to encourage people to get in contact with me so that I could gauge public opinion. So whereas this one, the contact was all initiated by community, not me. So I think this says how strongly a group of particular locals feel about this issue. And the message that I received from those people was that they want council to take a leadership role on this one. So from there, council officers have investigated the issue through the report that we've got in front of this. However, I think there is limited clarity in attempting to make sense of all this data that the report is based on. For example, on page 8 of the report, it states that only 16 Victorian councils host circuses that have exotic animals on council land. But then in attachment F on page 88, it says that circuses with exotic animals visit 41 councils in Victoria. So that data doesn't quite add up. There is no distinction between whether this happens on council-owned land or private. Just to be clear, this issue is not about preventing circuses with exotic animals coming to Wodonga, because regardless of the outcome of this motion, circuses with exotic animals could still visit on private land in Wodonga. This is about acknowledging that there are people within our community who don't want to see their council endorsing the use of exotic animals in circuses.
Thank you, Councillor Bennett. Other councillors? Yep, Councillor Hall.
Okay. I'm not going to go into the documented evidence on this because the report in the council agenda deals with this in a really well. Council officers put together a really well balanced report, and I commend them for this. Other councillors may choose to go into it further or have already done this, and I thank Councillor Bennett for all your work that you put into this as well. There's always an argument, both sides, that has provided good evidence. The decision for this motion, for or against. There's also many grey areas too. Emotions and conscience also can play a part. This motion tonight, I believe, is not about being critical, but more about how we can take the lead to do things better. I've been a supporter of better respect and treatment of animals for many, many years. It's not just about being on the left or right side of the political debate. It crosses both boundaries. It really is just about achieving better outcomes for animals, be it our pets, animals in zoos, or even the wild. We as a community and a nation could do much better in this area. But having said this, I do feel that the tide is starting to change. And I say this because of the many emails I've received in support for the banning of the use of council land for circuses who use exotic animals in their performances. There have been many people in the community who have put their views across to me, both by email and in person, and from both sides of the fence. One thing that I did feel that did come across in this community engagement was that there was an overwhelming view, especially from the younger adults in the community, was the support for the council to take the lead and support this motion. The view was that they saw these types of circuses outdated and disrespectful to the exotic animals that are on display. They want the community to support the lead for us to move on from this sort of entertainment. It is funny, I would have thought the performances of exotic animals in circuses is most probably aimed at the younger audience. With responses I've received, I would say the younger audience are well on the way to moving away from this sort of entertainment. They will be our decision makers of the future. I also believe the two circuses left in Australia who still use exotic animals are aware of this. Adam St James from both circuses stated in the report, page 14, that the current lions will be retired from the circus within 5 years. And once retired, they will not be replaced. The monkeys will also not be replaced. Although he did state that the circuses still continue to draw excellent crowds, there was nothing mentioned about if the crowds would still be there without the use of exotic animals. I believe they would. The RSPCA are not supportive of the use of exotic animals in circuses. Their policy is based on evidence that no circuses, no matter how well managed, can provide the appropriate environment for wild animals, pointed out in the report on page 15. I support the motion put up tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Other councillors? Councillor Mildren?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This motion is really concerning, not least of which by the fact that it actually prohibits, in effect, the use of any exotic animal on council land. Now, if we have a carnival that has a dog show attached or associated with it, we've just taken it out of any access to council owned land if we pass this motion. This motion tries to narrow it down to circuses only, which is discriminatory, but by the use of the term carnivals, it brings in anything that relates to it, like rodeos, the whole shebang. So what we're doing with this motion is basically taking out quite a number of events that we have in this community, and I think that in itself is very concerning. If you look at the definition, and the definition in the report which describes a circus, and the definition which describes an exotic animal, then it's an animal that's basically not natural to Australia. So we bring in just about every other animal there is that is used in some form of animal show, whether it be a cat show, a chook show, any other thing, that brings it in. They are effectively carnivals of some description generally. So I'd be very concerned about that as a start. But put all that to one side, just identifying circus animals and saying, oh, look, we'll take lions and monkeys out. Well, circuses have lots of other animals as well that aren't Australian. Are we going to take all that out as well? How does this work? I just cannot support this resolution in the form that it is. I will support anything, next to anything that ensures that we get good animal welfare. And to my way of thinking at the moment, the way the laws are structured, and given that most of the exotic animals that are used, be it lions, elephants, monkeys, horses, dogs, are bred many, many, many generations in captivity and essentially aren't wild animals, and everything that we read in the reports and the documentation that we've had presented tonight refers to wild animals. And absolutely, I agree, if the animals are being captured in the wild and brought in and made to perform, totally wrong. But if we're talking about animals that are multiple generations born in captivity, it's a whole different story. And those animals could never be released back to the wild. So what happens? Do we just allow them not to be stimulated and to live in a paddock somewhere, or to be bored because of taking the stimulation away from them, from the things that they've been doing? There's such a wide array of different things that I just think we're jumping off on the wrong foot with this. If we're looking at animal welfare, there's other ways of dealing with it. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Milton, did you want to foreshadow an alternate motion? Is that what I heard?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If this motion fails, yes.
Okay. Do councillors want to hear what that foreshadowed alternate motion might be?
Madam Mayor, as a foreshadowed motion, I'd move that the officers be thanked for their endeavours in putting this report together, with no further action to be taken regarding the use and display of exotic animals.
Councillor Watson, did you want to have something to say?
Just very briefly, Madam Mayor, I won't be voting for this particular motion. I do believe that Councillor Bennett has done a fantastic job. I think the council staff have done a fantastic job bringing some really great data, and that's one of the reasons I voted initially in favour of it, to bring some things. The only ramifications I see is that other things that in our community, and I know it's not exotic animals, I know they're not caged, but petting zoos and everything we have to do with other animals within our city and within our and through our different events we run in our city. So it's the animal welfare we've always got to look out for, and I do believe that we've come a long way in zoos, circuses, all sorts of things, looking after animals in enclosures and whatever. So I believe just as many people that would like to stop this exotic animals or circus animals are as many happy little kids who see them who would never in the opportunity in the future. So, but I think community will vote with their feet. So it's probably on its way to be out, but there won't be zoos with exotics, circus, I beg your pardon, with exotics. But I don't think we as a council should stop, as long as they follow all permits and all regulations required to stop any business that occurs in our city.
Thank you. Before going to you, Councillor Lowe, because you get to close, I wouldn't mind having a few words on this either. I think we can alleviate a lot of the issues raised by Councillor Mildren through the policy. So through some definitions in our policy, be really clear about what we're defining as exotic animals, but also as circuses and carnivals. So I think that we actually can be very prescriptive in that. And I think that policy is then going to determine how then it is utilised. Councillors, I've actually struggled with coming up with a yes or a no on this, and it is for many reasons, but I think overwhelmingly I've heard from the community that they actually want council to stop this practice on council and community land. It doesn't stop it on private land, but I also look at the plans for the Gateway Lakes and what's foreshadowed there into the future, and it's in the very near future. So the reality is this show would be coming back in about 3 years' time. And in that 3 years' time, I would anticipate that we may see an alternate use down there. So on that basis and on the basis of supporting the community's views, I'm going to stand behind the motion put by Councillor Lowe. Councillor Lowe, over to you for final close.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll put this motion up tonight to raise the discussion because I, like you, this is an absolutely brilliant report, and I notice there's a couple of solicitors in the audience, and I could sit here and draw data from both sides of the argument here and make a really good case to why it should go one way or the other. But and I want to make it quite clear on a personal view, I do not think the welfare of these animals, I'm not going to vote either way tonight based on the welfare of these animals. I do think that these animals are very well looked after. Whether you agree with the methods of looking after or not, I believe that they are well looked after. And this motion, nor was this raised because of our thoughts of the welfare of these animals. But I did say when I got elected that I would vote in the way that the community wanted, and sometimes these may or may not go against my personal beliefs. So tonight I'll be voting in favour of this motion due to what I've been asked to by community. Community had an opportunity for a long time now to get in contact with us, to notify us, and that's what they've done. And the overwhelming majority of the community that got in contact with myself asked me to represent them by not allowing exotic animals on council-owned land, and that's why I'll be voting tonight. Thank you.
Oh, there we go. Just took a little while to clear. Thank you. Councillors, the motion is there before us. Councillor, do I need to read that out again? Given we've got it in front of us, councillors. Councillors, motion is there before us. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Sure. Councillors, all those, I'll read the motion, that council-owned land not be available for hire by circuses and carnivals that involve the performance and display of exotic animals. All those in favour? Councillor Lowe, Councillor Hall, Councillor Speedy and Councillor Bennett. Against? Councillor Mildren and Councillor Watson. Thank you. Thank you, councillors. Item 8.3 is Wodonga to Bonegilla High Country Rail Trail reconstruction and surface works. Councillors, the recommendation is there on page 27, but after some discussions earlier today and also some work that has been done, there is an alternate set of motions with 3 points on a piece of paper that you should have in front of you. Councillors, would somebody be happy to move either the one on page 27 or the 3 items that have been written up on the page? Which one, Councillor Watson? Page 27. Do I have a seconder for that? Yes? Oh. Page 27. Yep. Thank you. Sorry about that. Councillor Watson, off you go.
Madam Mayor, we go through approving or the staff go through a tender process that has been put in place with all the correct criteria, and if we need to, we can change those criteria over time. But I believe it's a great expenditure of money to improve a rail trail that will be used for all of community, but also for access for disability, because it'll have a great service on it to get our people with a disability to have the opportunity to ride, walk, or have any sort of mobility scooter or whatever on that trail. So I move that the recommendation on page 27.
Madam Mayor, I won't be voting in favour of this, and it's not because it's not a good project. It's simply because we don't have the legal right to issue this tender right now. We have no control over this piece of land. We do not own it. We do not have a contract or an agreement in place with the owners or the people that are responsible for this land. And as a consequence, we have no right to be issuing any of this stuff or undertaking any of the works at this present time. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Again, Councillor Mildren, would you like to foreshadow an alternate motion, perhaps that one that's come in on the extra piece of paper for you?
Madam Mayor, I need to think about that. Thank you.
It could also be an amendment. Councillors? No? Councillors, I won't support the motion as it's been put, and it's a little bit in line with Councillor Mildren. And again, it's not about the project, because absolutely I think the project's outstanding. But my view is that we absolutely need to have a memorandum of understanding to be reached with Parklands Albury Wodonga, because they are the lessee of the land, and we need that agreement in place to be able to conduct these works. So I would like to ask the mover if Councillor Watson would be prepared to have that extra line put in around the subject to the memorandum of understanding.
So, Madam Mayor, you're referring to the first motion on the suggested motions, subject to memorandum of understanding being reached with Parklands Albury Wodonga. If that's the feeling of the room, I'm more than happy to move that.
Your second has given a nod as well. So that's the amendment. We need to vote on the amendment. Yep. So, yep, Councillor Mildren.
Point of clarification, please, Madam Mayor. Does that change include transferring from the recommendation on page 27 through to the entire statement on the separate sheet that we've got?
So, Councillor Watson, the addition is also in point 3. It says, or otherwise negotiated with XL Grade Brunei Limited. That's around dates in case the memorandum of understanding can't be signed by the 1st of December. Are you happy for that additional line within point 1 and the additional line in point 3? Yes? Seconder, Councillor Bennett, are you comfortable with that? Does anybody else want to have a comment? Councillor Lowe? No? Yep.
It can get clunkier too. I'm just going to go for a point of clarification. Do we need to vote on the amendment first, or we're just going straight into the amendment? Comfortable. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Cool. So we can just speak to. Awesome. Well, I'll just reiterate what Councillor Watson said and echo his thoughts. I think it's a great project that we've got and we're voting on here, and I'm happy with the amendment that's being made to to sort out the legalities around the motion. And I too look forward to actually riding this and running this, and I hope I get to even do that with an all abilities person as well. So I think it'd be great on the trail. Thank you.
It's a shame it's become a bit of a messy situation. I wish I was a bit more aware of the real consequences of what we're deciding on before the last minute. But anyway, I do think the project is a good project. The bike riding is and will continue to be an activity many in our community enjoy. Only a couple of weeks ago I was driving through Brighton and there were bikes everywhere. This region is and will continue to be recognised for our beautiful countryside and expanding bike trails. And part of this funding has allowed the council to go ahead with this project. I'm sure once it's completed, it'll encourage more people to Wodonga to enjoy the new biking experience that we will have to offer. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a note of clarity from the report. You might note on page 22 in the report, references made to the lowest tender being 902,472 excluding GST, and you might note that the accepted sum in the recommendation is 1,017,722 excluding GST. I point out that the additional money is being used or has been included into this project to cover an additional distance of track, and based on the schedule of rates that were part of the original tender documentation. So that just clarify anybody that might have had questions about that. The other thing is this project's excellent, and it's something we should be trying to promote and push and try and connect it through to everything and get the standard to the same sort of standard all the way through the whole Cudgewell Rail Trail. This sort of thing has the potential long term to be a huge tourist attraction to the whole area and to bring quite a lot of economic development and build economies, not just in Wodonga but on the whole rail trail. So anything we can do that makes this work is great, but I'm a stickler for making sure everything's being done in the way it should be done in a proper and legal manner. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
I'm going to come back to you, Councillor Watson, for any close. Councillor Bennett, did you want to speak to this, given there's been the adjustment to the amendment, or the amendment to the recommendation is actually what I meant to say?
No, I'm still happy with the outcomes with what's in front of us. I'm still happy with the report, so I don't have anything else to add.
Councillors, I think that this project is a huge potential for our economy, but also for our local people. So it will really connect into the centre of the city and provide for that off-road experience for families, for our kids to get out on their bikes. You're right, to get out and run those trails as well. So I think this is a fantastic project that is going to hugely benefit our community, but also our wider economy. It's pretty exciting. Councillor Watson, to you for close.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I'm just very excited that we've got this up. It just adds value to all our walking tracks and bicycle tracks that I think we have a network of about 100 k's of tracks through our city. And this is just going to add value to it, and the linkages are going to be fantastic over the years, and the safety, I think, of our community, but the mobility of our children and our elderly children and our elderly people.
Councillors, the motion is there before you. It's the three items that are listed on that individual page where it says subject to the memorandum. Councillors, motion is before us. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried. Item 8.4 is the building works for the construction of the cinema-based entertainment facility in Junction Place, Wodonga.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have an indirect conflict. My business was previously engaged in planning with the Junction Place project. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Now, councillors, the recommendation is on page 42, but I'm going to just step outside of some of our ordinary process and actually ask one of our planners. our team leader of statutory planning, Simon, to actually come forward. Simon, would you come and grab one of these seats, perhaps one next to Councillor Bennett would be great. Planning is always an incredibly complex issue, and when you get a project of this size and this magnitude, in fact, I think it's probably one of the largest we've ever seen in our CBD delivered by the private sector, Simon has certainly got the words around summarising the report, but also the planning implications. So thank you. Welcome to the table tonight, Simon. If you would mind running through that overview and that brief, that would be fantastic.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Excuse me, I have a bit of a cold, so excuse my hoarse voice. This item is a planning permit application for the development of a cinema-based entertainment facility in Junction Place at the intersection of Elgin Boulevard and Smythe Street. The proposal seeks a car parking waiver to reduce the required number of car parking spaces for the development. The development comprises a 10-theatre cinema with seating for up to 2,030 patrons, 6 restaurants, 3 convenience restaurants with drive-through facilities, a level dedicated to entertainment facilities with function rooms, children's soft play area, karaoke rooms and laser tag. And then at basement level, 2 basement car parks with parking for approximately 330 vehicles. Subject land is within this activity centre zone for Wodonga's central business area, and it is also affected by a parking overlay which sets out specific car parking requirements for the CBA, and an environmental audit overlay which has been applied due to potential soil contamination related to the former use of the site for railway purposes. An environmental audit of the land has been completed and concluded the land is suitable for commercial development. At a strategic level, the proposal is well supported by state and local planning policy and in turn the activity centre zoning of the land. The land is within Precinct 1 of the activity centre zone, which has an identified objective to develop Junction Place as a mixed-use precinct that enhances and consolidates retail and commercial activity. There is strategic support for the proposal in planning policy relating to settlement, activity centres, social and cultural infrastructure, and in both the community's vision and Council's strategic planning vision for the city. In terms of building design, the activity centre zone has a strong focus on achieving a high quality built form outcome, and so I mentioned the basement level car parking. So there's 2 levels of basement car parking which will house the vehicle parking for the development, and subsequently cars parked in the cinema will not be visible from the street. By its nature, this building or this development has to be a large format building, so its form has to follow its function. But at ground floor level, the development is active and substantially glazed. The design concentrates attention to the lower level through the use of solid brick-framed archways, which is a reference to the nearby heritage-listed former railway station and goods shed, both of which of red brick construction. At its upper levels, the facade is shaped and sculpted to provide a curvilinear rising elements that sit atop these brick archways. And then the material, the submitted plans include a mixed materials palette that enhance the visual interest of the building. So from a design and building built form perspective, I think it's officer's assessment that we've got a good outcome in that regard. I mentioned 3 of the proposed food and drink premises are drive-through convenience restaurants. Incorporation of these drive-through restaurants has somewhat compromised the design, and a key design principle for the CBA to be prioritise pedestrians over motor vehicles, particularly along Elgin Boulevard. Although not ideal, it is considered that the construction of a narrow, well-designed exit will still allow Elgin Boulevard to function as a pedestrian priority area. And this view has been formed in the view of an overall development that meets meets the requirements of the planning scheme and also the objectives for Junction Place. Signage is a key component of a development of this nature. The applicant has provided the signage typology proposed. The most prominent of these are two 14-metre by 7-metre United Cinemas signs that wrap around the corners of the buildings at Elgin Boulevard and Smythe and the opposite corner. Again, the officer's view is that the signage is commensurate with the scale of the building and it's also its mixed-use nature, and it is considered that it will not negatively affect the amenity of the area or safety. Transport and car parking are key issues with the development. This development plans submitted with the application indicate that 334 car parking spaces will be provided. Officer's assessment of the proposal calculates that a reduction of 196 spaces is required under the statutory car parking requirements. The application has provided supporting documentation and justification for this reduction in car parking. That included a traffic impact and parking assessment by traffic consultants, and Council has independently sought a peer review of that assessment. The traffic and parking impact assessment provides empirical and case study evidence demonstrating the proposed level of car parking is sufficient, and the peer review of that assessment reaches the same conclusion. In terms of the planning context for the parking overlay, the objectives for the parking overlay are to assist in encouraging appropriate commercial development within the Wodonga CBA using realistic parking rates, to maximise the supply and usage of parking by time of day for customers and employees and capitalise on shared parking opportunities, and to limit the requirements to provide car parking for new development whilst minimising any adverse parking and equity consequences. And its officer's assessment is that the proposal meets all three of those objectives for the parking overlay. Clause 4 of the parking overlay states that if a permit is granted to reduce the requirement for car parking, council must apply payment in lieu of $5,000 for each space not provided on site, unless it is satisfied that such payment is not warranted. So council has discretion to waive the payment in lieu requirements. Officer's assessment is that no payment should be applied on the basis that there is sufficient on-site parking. In terms of, obviously, the key functionality of the development is an important component. So the design and functionality of the basement level car parks, drive-through facilities, bicycle parking, loading, refuse collection, all of these will require additional consideration at the detailed design stage, and the draft conditions of permit pick up on all of these detailed design matters. In conclusion, officer's assessment is that the proposal meets the requirements of the Wodonga planning scheme and represents a mixed-use development that will add to the vitality and presentation of the CBA. The proposed reduction in the number of car parking spaces is supported on the basis that the two basement level car parks provide sufficient on-site parking, and the waiver of a financial contribution of $5,000 for each car parking space not provided under the statutory requirements is also supported on the basis that the development has sufficient on-site parking.
Simon, thank you very much. That's a very succinct and and at the same time broad in terms of its coverage of the development and the application. So thank you, because planning, yeah, you can get down there. He's nervous. Okay, councillors, so the recommendation is actually across multiple pages but starts on page 42 and goes to page 50. Can I have someone move this? Thank you, Councillor Lowe. Thank you, Councillor Watson. Councillor Lowe.
Madam Mayor, I'm going to vote in favour of this recommendation tonight for a number of reasons. One is the amount of thought in the presentation that Simon put into how he articulated coming up with his decision for this recommendation is one of them. Number two is how bloody exciting this is more than anything. I did a quick calculation, quick numbers while we're just sitting here, and I can see roughly 250 jobs sitting in this development in its immediate, and most of all, that's our youth of Wodonga. So unfortunately, Wodonga has the highest youth unemployment rate, but when you move a development like this into, well, we've got laser tags, bowling alleys, drive-throughs, the flow on into our community for these types of jobs and for our young is unbelievable. And the main reason this is up with us is because of a car parking waiver. So I look at this and the car parking waiver, if we don't do it, the city gets 980,000. Those 250 jobs is 16 days, to put it in its relativity for you. So that's how long it takes us to reclaim that money back by not getting in the way of this development. So I'm really bloody excited for this development. I'm voting in favour of it because we just want to see things happening. We've all been talking about this for a long time, and as Simon indicated, the built form is pretty damn good for the size of the building that it has to be. So, yeah, very impressive. Thank you.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I think I've been around this table for a number of years, and we've had lots of discussions about a cinema coming to Wodonga and lots of fanfare and lots of headlines in the Border Mail over a number of years. And one of the most recent ones was out here to be on our council land here. This is so exciting because, and I go along with Councillor Lowe's comments, is this is actually happening. This is the first permit that's been put in place for the City of Wodonga to have a cinema and entertainment for our whole community, but most particularly our youth, and things to generate our community being our city. It also generate all our other current businesses here too to grow and expand because of the numbers of people that will be around here. You've only got to be in Dean Street around their cinema centre there, how much that with food and things like everything goes. So I have no issue with waivering the $5,000 per car park space. Not because of what Councillor Lowe said, but because we have so much parking currently, and I believe getting a healthy city, healthy community is that it doesn't hurt us to walk a short distance, and we have a lot of car parks, even just street parking in South Street. They're within the vicinity of this complex that will be built. We have a lot of car parks, and you know it doesn't hurt us to have a bit of a stroll. And what a great place to walk through Junction Square with everything we've got there now on your way to the cinema. So congratulations to the staff of the city to come up with a fantastic permit ready to move forward. And congratulations to people having some faith in building something in this great city.
I'd just like to say that the council did get an independent assessor to look at the car parking, which is the responsible thing to do, and I'm confident that there's adequate car parking within this facility. Also, I'd like to say that over the past couple of years as being on council, when we consulted community members, what they'd like to see most in Wodonga, a cinema and more entertainment within our CBA was one of the number one things that came across. So this development that enables all of that, I think it's exciting, and as Danny said, there'll be more jobs that will be available for our young people. It's creating a momentum, and at the end of the day, it will be completing an exciting new chapter in the central CBA story. So, well, part of the chapter in the CBA story. So, yeah, I think it's a great project. Thank you.
The applicant says that the 334 car parking spaces are adequate, and they've provided us with a parking impact statement that supports this. We then had an expert review, their expert review. So there's been a number of experts and a number of reviews involved, and their main finding was that the parking was completely adequate. To give some context with that one, so the car park at the back of the Albury Cinema is 168 car parking spots, so this one will be double that. And then we also have the car parking, even though it's not ours, but it's the Centro Wodonga car parking, and we'll also have on-street car parking in Smythe Street and South Street. And what we're talking about parking, we recently had a study that looked at all the CBA car parking, and it found that it was about 50% capacity. So we've definitely got more spaces to park. So I'm really excited about this. That whole area down there has such a cool vibe, and I can't wait for the momentum just to continue.
Thank you. Before I come back to you, Councillor Lowe, Councillor Watson, we both sat here a very long time at this table, and the number one thing continually from our community, particularly our young people, has been asking for a entertainment facility like this. This isn't just a cinema. This is an entertainment facility. And I also reflect on the planning that session that we had last week, and one of the things that was a standout in terms of continuing to improve our city was the development of nightlife and a nighttime economy. And this project does that on every front. It will provide new jobs. It will provide new economic stimulus, but it will also provide opportunities for our young people for both jobs, but also in the entertainment area. I think the other reaffirming component is having the independent studies in and around car parking, and you can't turn around and charge somebody for car parking when we've actually conclusively had from independent experts, and not just one of them, you're correct, Councillor Bennett, to say that what's being provided is enough. This is an incredible step forward again for our city centre, and it just continues to blossom. I think I'd like to say congratulations to the developer and also the team within council for working really hard to actually get the built form to the level that has been put forward. It came a long way from the first plan, and it is certainly something that I think is going to be a landmark building for our future and our city and our people. So I'm incredibly excited, and I just can't wait for it to start. So I look forward to seeing the diggers move on to there as soon as they can. And in planning terms, I know we will continue to work incredibly hard with the developers to go through and refine the detailed design that is yet to come forward, but we will endeavour to work as swiftly as you have been. Thank you, Leon, to you and your team, to make sure that that happens. And bring it on. Councillor Lowe, over to you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. 62% was that number, Councillor Bennett. And that same parking strategy, and that's what we run at, 62% occupancy for our current parking, and the suggested by the expert is to run at 86 or 87%, so they actually think we've got an overkill, which is inefficient economy for council. So, two things. The city centre may not have a parking out the front of your shop that you want to go to, but it's within 400 metres. Like Councillor Watson said, we need to start parking and walking, and that's a strategy in itself. It's digressing a little bit away from what we're here talking about, but it's about the health of our city as well. Also, we are building a city for the future. And what does the future hold? And the big thing at the moment is around autonomous vehicles. So I was watching Bernard Salt the other night on TV on the ABC. Can't believe I'm even saying that, but anyway. And it was about how the autonomous vehicles will be on the ground in 2020. At our local government conference in Canberra earlier this year, BMW were there saying that those autonomous vehicles, they're 5 years ahead of their 2030 plan. So they're also predicting they're going to be on the ground operating in 2021. There's already trials throughout Australia. So this parking waiver that we're doing probably in 5 or 10 years is not going to matter because these vehicles will be parking out of the city anyway. So I'll just close with that. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, councillors. Motion is there before us. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried. Welcome back, Councillor Mildren. Item 9.1, review of the council meeting procedures and processes. Councillors, the recommendation is there on page 52. Councillor Bennett. Thank you, Councillor Watson. Councillor Bennett.
No. So this report is just about extending our timeline out a little bit more. So we're currently, well not we, there's a review being done of the Local Government Act 1989. So that might actually also have some impact on how we run our meetings. So it would make sense for us to wait for that one and do that in conjunction with that. But we've had some really good discussions. There's a couple of dot points here about the briefings that we've had. We've had some really good, robust discussion around changing how we do our meeting procedures and processes. So I look forward to this to continue, and then we'll have something early next year.
Any other councillors? No? Thank you. Good summary, I think, Councillor Bennett. Councillors, did you want anything to close? Councillors, motion's there before us. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion's carried. Item 10.1 is the finance report for October 2018. The recommendation is for information only. Is there any questions, comments? No. 10.2 is the planning report. It is for information only. Is there any questions or comments? Yes.
Officer Schultz brought it to my attention. There was a typo in Castle Creek. It's on on 2 pages, but page 66. Permit number 105, 2017 is that should have been Officer Schultz. I'm pretty sure you said Castle Creek on Huon Creek.
Everybody understand that? That's okay? Yep, we'll make note for the minutes. Thank you. 10.3 is the building report. It's for information only. Is there any questions or comments? Nope. Yes.
There is a large sum of money being spent on a fit out in 172 High Street, which is very promising and very, showing confidence in our city and in our CBA.
Thank you. I'll keep us moving. 10.4 is the competitive services report. Again, it's for information only. Is there any questions or comments? I'd just like to make a little note that, particularly in the tenders advertised, we're seeing all the works for the cricket hub. So that's pretty exciting to see that finally getting underway now that we've worked through the detailed plans and etc., because it's important we got it right. So I think that's incredibly exciting to see. Yep, Councillor Lowe.
Just because we're on the sporting theme, I'll just make note of the Kelly Park netball courts lighting upgrade has been awarded now. So the girls down there have been working hard to get a decent set of lighting to be playing under. So look forward to their performances picking up under the new light. Be good.
And I think we can't not highlight the provision of architectural services for our new gallery and library. That's an incredible project that will bring real improved vibrancy to this end of our city. Okay, 10.5 is the council plan progress report. It's in all of those extra tabled papers, councillors. Is there any questions or comments? No. Assemblies of councillors, again for information only, 10.6. 10.7 is the decisions register. Can't get used to that new name. And that moves us to 12, notices of motion of 11, which is there is none. And 12.1 is the golf cart access to the Wodonga Golf Club. That is a petition, and the recommendation is there on page 90 to receive that document. Can I have someone move that? Thank you, Councillor Watson. Thank you, Councillor Bennett. Commentary?
Madam Mayor, as per all petitions, we now, it's tabled and we now deal with it and bring it back at a future meeting.
Any other comments? Nope. Councillors, motion is there before us. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried. Item 13 is council seal, of which there is none. 14, urgent business. 15, question time. No questions. Thank you. 16, confidential business, none. And no confidential urgent business. Have I skipped over? No, the awards are at the end now. Councillors, that just leaves me to close the meeting, but I'd also just like to highlight that next Monday at 9 a.m. there is a special meeting to be held. And that special meeting is for the purposes of electing mayor and deputy mayor and determining the appointments of committees and also to commence the recruitment process for our CEO. And CEO, I am going to let you have as much time as you'd like on the microphone come December. So, councillors, thank you very much. Gallery, thank you. Staff, and that just leaves me to close the meeting, special meeting on next Monday at 9 a.m. on the 26th, and then our normal meeting in December on the 10th. And if you just